Hi, I changed my setting a bit because where I used to shoot, it's just so hot now. Everything above 20 degrees is not my friend. So I was already talking about this with my friend and it was maybe 1 month ago and I still couldn't get this out of my head. Picture this, the two guys, podcast equipment, fashion podcasters, right? And they were talking about Paris Fashion Week and they were, and this is their mistake, don't fuck with Sarah Burton. They mentioned Sarah Burton for Givenchy and how they thought that it was very over sexualized and very adolescent and not strong woman enough. Now, I don't have a problem with critique. Art should be discussed. But at no point they discussed what actually Sarah Burton designed and where these silhouettes came from. Because, this collection, I was already talking about that, and basically she just took inspiration from this very first collection of Hubert de Givenchy, and for our eye now it looks very classical, but at that time it was very youthful, and you can draw comparisons, even these scarves and everything, that's not the point. And yes, Sarah Burton wanted to create this collection for strong women because this is what Hubert de Givenchy did in 1952. And now these two dudes tell me that this was not strong enough. Sarah Burton, the point, she did it wrong. This woman made a wrong collection for women. I hate a dude explaining to a woman what a strong woman is. No historical context, no visual analysis, just vibes and opinions. I love it. It doesn't slay. That's a group chat you should have with your friends, okay? Because I also dislike a lot of stuff. And sometimes I even dislike collections of the brands I give very positive reviews because of what they deliver. But you cannot sell it as a critique. That's for friends group. In the ideal world, the designer already gives some insights through their work, and it's very reductant to evaluate fashion only under the term if it's beautiful or not. And that's why I tend to avoid this term fashion critic. I like commentator or researcher more because critic kind of already has this very, I don't know, it shouldn't be like that, but it has, especially in fashion, this very sassy undertone. It's bloated with ego and very often being confused with just having a loud opinion because, confidence can take you everywhere. I don't have that much confidence. That's why it doesn't take me everywhere. On the contrary, fashion researcher, it kind of offers you some sort of curiosity. It's not about the judgment, it's more rooted in context, comparison, and it should analyze, not attack. There's a very good article by this. He's actually a philosopher, and he wrote an article on fashion criticism, and the guy is called Lars Svendsen, and he said, unjustified negativity is no improvement over unjustified positivity. Saying I don't like it, it's not a critique, it's just your personal reaction. And it's okay, your grandma has personal reactions and opinions on fashion. It doesn't make her critic. The fashion criticism already is not a very new concept, although talking and writing about fashion dates back centuries, but usually it wasn't treated with seriousness as visual arts or literature. It was always more entangled with sociology, philosophy, economics, but it never was a discipline on its own because there are no frameworks, no standard methodologies to analyze it. Oh my god, embarrassing. And that's why it kind of always get this side eye from academics. So when I'm talking about fashion criticism, a lot of theories and frameworks I'm kind of borrowing from art world, but how criticism works in arts, it's not the same. It's more of what fashion criticism could be. The goal of art criticism is always to highlight how artwork engage to social problems, issues, political climate, sexism, environmental destruction. And fashion often actually touches on these subjects too, but it rarely gets attention to that. Try to remember the last time when you heard a fashion critic talking about fashion collection from this perspective. If you know some, tell me. And I think it's lacking this analytical respect it actually deserves, because the content, I hate this word, the whole material is there for us to analyze. Imagine if after the show we would actually ask, what does it say about environmental ethics? And that would be a criticism that informs and not reacts. And I think this is very important criteria, not only for a critic but also for a designer, to kind of pick up on these issues, make them visible, whether sexism, racism. Okay, I already made my point here. Okay, it just, we understand that fashion could be a medium to articulate this huge world of issues. But I think the biggest enemy of this depth of criticism is very ironic, because I'm making YouTube video and I'm about to say internet and virality per se, which is like depth of nuance. Virality does wonders for exposure, but it kills the depth. One meme and suddenly the collection is iconic or irrelevant. It just motivates this shallowness because we don't have capacity to accept this analytical information. People review the collections on TikTok. I try to do that, and they are trying to fit themselves in, I don't know, 60 seconds time frame. It's horrible, because you know that if you will do a long form video on these platforms, nobody will ever watch. We don't have time for that. I'm not blaming people, I'm not blaming society, because I'm the same. I'm just sometimes doom scrolling and I am too lazy to listen for long articulated sentences on Instagram. I sometimes just, I don't know, want 3 seconds video with a bold text on that and move on. That's why I think YouTube, it's kind of better platform for this sort of information. And there is another very good book, it's called On Criticism by Noel, Carroll, and it says a proper critic offers supporting reasons based on the artist's intentions, classification of the work and examination of its features. No one is asking for a PhD dissertation under your Instagram post. It's not that serious. Sometimes you just want to get entertained, as I said. But if you call yourself critic, you better show your work and not you. What I mean, I don't like this tells me more about you as a person and not about a collection or a brand. Saying that Tara Burden drew her inspiration from 1952 collection of Givenchy, and she actually was very lucky to find never discovered patterns before to use in the creation of this collection. That tells me something about the collection. So for proper criticism, we have 5 components: evaluation, description, comparison, interpretation, and contextualization. The aim of the criticism is to state as clearly as possible the possible value in the creation. However, evaluation alone is not suffice to qualify as a proper criticism. Making judgments without providing some standards and reasoning will not cut it. Being bitchy is not the same as being critical. So quite a standard demand is to base your evaluations with reasons. And I think this leads us to very big part of, I don't know, kind of false criticism. Sales catalogs cosplaying a criticism, and these are major fashion magazines. September issues, you know, the biggest issue of the year, usually is 70% ads. Can you imagine Vogue having an article saying, this product collection was kind of weak? Never. Editors would never allow them, because these brands are paying huge money to place their ads in the magazines. So why would an editor bite a hand that feeds them, manicured hand that feeds them? And you know, that's why very big fashion critics like Cathy Horan, they were never writing for a fashion magazine. They were always independent, and as a result, they got banned from some fashion shows, which is bonkers. And this is what makes fashion criticism so unique, because could you imagine that art critic would criticize a piece of art of some particular artist and he is banned from any exhibitions of that artist? I don't know. It's also not realistic to expect that everything what a designer creates is just masterpiece. But when you go on a Vogue runway and read their reviews, it seems like everybody's just doing fantastic. Everybody's just major talent. You don't have any dips. It's just going up and up and up, because nothing is ever bad. or even neutral. Everything is brilliant. And maybe it's actually this podcast is just a counter effect of these magazines, because people are tired of these board placements. And you know, here we can draw parallels with influencers, because some influencers are also very careful about their opinions because they want to get invited to the shows. It happened that influencer turned down a partnership because the product didn't actually fit their aesthetic and they never got invited again. At the end of the day, I'm not a fan of somebody giving me a verdict. The critic should give you a perspective and shouldn't feed you with sentences like, I like, I love, this is tasteful, I hate it, bad, good. This is up to me to decide. For a critic, a task is to give me tools to decide. I have to know how this work connects to the past work, what are the references. So a critic shouldn't be a cheerleader or a hater per se. They should be an outsider. They should help us to understand why something matters. Critical thinking is two-way street, and I think critics also should ask readers or audience or whatever, and critic should know awfully a lot about a fashion history. If you're looking into a collection of 2014 of Rick Owens and Dries Van Noten, you might think these two brands have absolutely nothing in common. But then you can actually see that these both brands are drawing some inspiration, not inspiration, but they are kind of influenced by Paul Poiret, and it's never acknowledged. Maybe these designers don't even know that. Maybe it's not intentional, but it changes how we view this collection when you know this information. You start to grasp some stylistic connections that were not necessarily clear for you before. Pointing out features like this is the crucial part of fashion critics' job. We actually need good fashion criticism, and this is what brings me back to this very unfortunate podcast I was listening to. Maybe the real issue is not that they didn't like Burton's collection, it's that they didn't care to understand it because they were reviewing. I'm so sorry, I have to keep the window open, oh my god. They actually were reviewing like 50 collections. You don't have a capacity to go in depth for all of them. But if you lose that fashion talk, what is the point? Being critical is nothing more than the ability to make distinctions. The goal of thought is not to produce this verdict of this abstract knowledge saying, I love it, and this means that you should love it too, which means it's good. What does it mean good anyways? What does it mean good? The goal is to give us the ability to judge. And with my friend we were talking about, by the way, all the videos are just so she has something to watch while she eats breakfast, so bon provecho. And we were talking about the confidence. It's if you're confident enough in yourself, you can sell anything. You can sell any opinion you like. Who checks the credibility? I was listening to these guys. I had no idea who they are. I still don't, because I didn't Google. I feel like this will switch. I feel like we were really craving for this very easily digestible, short form content, but I think we are gaining our capacity back, capacity for knowledge. And I see the videos like Bliss Foster, and he's amazing, by the way. I'm such a huge fan. He even convinced my boyfriend, and my boyfriend is not a fashion boyfriend, but he's fashion curious, and we were watching a lot of Bliss Foster together. He's also very entertaining. He's knowledgeable and very entertaining, and I feel like people like these are finding their audiences again, which means that we are getting a bit sick of this 3 seconds huge text caption thing that moves and makes sounds. We just see these viral moments and we don't get anything from that because we forget it in 1 week. And now I'm personally attacking people who are only excited about fashion when it's fashion month. Every month is a fashion month. There is enough fashion created for the next generations. We have so much information. Until fashion month, we have to feed ourselves with this information so we can actually judge fashion in a proper, educated tone. Please normalize not to know everything. Normalize not to watch every single show. Only pick the ones that mean something to you, that This will sound cheesy, but I'm very moved by these things, so that are actually make you feel something. You don't even need to watch Margiela and pretend that it's amazing if you don't feel that. Because I know it's a lot of snobism, and there are some certain brands that you are supposed to love. And when you find a brand that's interesting to you, don't think that it's alt collection. You just go to the library, find all the books you can, try to understand what was the reason why Rei Kawakubo is so unhinged. You will find reasons. Also, you will find very interesting facts that you can share and impress people on parties. Thanks for letting me yap. Bye.